It's time for the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. Powerful and liberating business strategies you can start in 5 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, Dean Soto.
Hey, this is Dean Soto, founder of freedomin5minutes.com and prosulum.com, prosulum.com. And we're here again with another Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast episode. Today's topic is this: leadership in times of world crisis. That and more coming up. What is up, everybody? I am here with a really special guest, actually. This person is someone who I've literally been rolling with for the last year and a half. And it's not just like, let's roll. It's like literally rolling with jujitsu. But amazing person who has a ton of leadership experience. Someone who not only has changed the life of me through how well he's transformed me physically with jiu-jitsu and so on. He's transformed the lives of many other people in business, in life, and so on and so forth. So I really wanted to bring him on, and his name is Eric Olsen. So Eric, he is a freelance consultant. Super interesting, has both civilian and military background, and he's worked with different organizations such as Talentism, but right now he's really utilizing his skills for different businesses in the whole coronavirus pandemic world crisis thing. He currently is focusing on free crisis leadership, the free crisis leadership program with diligentplans.com, and it's something that is truly needed during this time. So I wanted to bring him on. So Eric, what is up, my man?
Hey, Dean. Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to it since we started talking here, like a week or so ago about it. And, just look forward to catching up in this whole time of social distancing and not getting the chance to roll with you every few days, but really just catching up and letting some folks out there know what we can do to hopefully help them through this time. Just incredible uncertainty, just the amount of upheaval in everyone's lives right now, from the stay-at-home mom to the high-speed professional, everyone in between. Everyone has had disruption, and now's the time when we really need leadership. And I'm hoping that myself, some of the folks that I work with over at Diligent Plans, we can really help people out around this time. Yeah,
for sure. It was funny because, when times are good, you just kind of do your own thing and do the things that you're used to. And even with you and I, it was like Eric's the jiu-jitsu mentor, and we talk business. I knew about your business, you knew about my business. We talked business, and it was like, it was just kind of more of chit chat. But as soon as something changes like this, where the whole world starts spiraling, like immediately we get on the phone and we're like, oh, what you're doing is extremely valuable during this time. And like what we're both doing is something that I think a lot of businesses tend to look at it as more of that's nice to have. Now it's like you have to have this, especially with the leadership aspect.
Absolutely. And, growth in crisis, the folks over at Diligent Plans, every one of us comes from an Army background.
That's so cool.
Almost all of us have been deployed once, if not multiple times. Just some amazing experience over there. And one of the things we talk a lot about, and you and I have talked a lot about it, is that how great the military is at creating crisis so that people grow.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Not everyone is going to go out there and go to boot camp. Not everyone is going to go do some of those fun things, some of those shared experiences. But a crisis like this, I think it really focuses people. And one of my favorite words, and I just love words. One of my favorite words is deliberate. And looking
beautiful.
at how people have had to become deliberate in this time.
Yes.
And this is definitely something new and different. None of us have ever seen anything like what we're going through right now. But when you look at the focus that it's giving people and the deliberate mindset that it's giving people, my 8-year-old daughter, she is planning like days in advance the specific time when she's going to FaceTime her friends.
Yep.
So, you can't teach that stuff.
No.
I've been on my kids for years to say, just set up a time instead of just saying, hey, this evening, I'm going to call my buddy whenever, and I'm going to see if they're home.
Yep.
Talk to him the day before and say, hey, after dinner, let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
It never stuck until all of a sudden they didn't have that ability to go see him whenever. Now they're being so deliberate and actually scheduling that time with their friends. And I think that's a perfect microcosm of what's going on in most of our lives right now.
I love that word, and that is exactly what's happening. It's cool to see that permeate into everyone basically in the world, in both life and in business. And so it's cool. I can't wait to dive into this more. So before we get into that, give us some background on who is Eric Olson. How did you get to where you are right now? I know that's a big loaded question, but but give us the little rundown.
So I am a product of so many false starts and turns that went the wrong way. And I like to say there's that country song from 5-10 years ago, whatever it is. It says the tagline is "Thank God for unanswered prayers," because that's the story of my life.
Yeah.
I can trace a lot of it back to, and this goes way, way back, but in, I think it was about 7th grade, a buddy of mine, his dad owned a plane and took me flying for his birthday. Let me actually fly, which I don't know what he was thinking.
Wow.
But I must have been crazy. I don't know. But I've often wanted to go back and ask him what he was thinking. But that started my love of flying. And then someone said, hey, go to the Air Force Academy. You like flying? The Air Force, right? I mean, that's the place you go. And so that first twist and turn came that I was accepted over to West Point and the Naval Academy, but not to the To Force Academy. And so I was like, okay, well, adapt and overcome. Let's go to West Point. So went to West Point.
You didn't want to be a Top Gun?
I did not want to be a Top Gun. I've always figured that, if I'm going to go on a cruise, I'm going to be, drinking pina coladas or something like that. I wasn't about that whole thing. And so I decided to go over to the Army, did West Point. I like to say that I was in the half of the class that make the upper half possible.
I love it.
and so, but I learned so many great things. And one of the things that really, sort of that next mile marker that stands out to me is, when you come back your sophomore year. Mm-hmm. So this is 19 years old. You come back from summer, you show up, you're now a sophomore. You're not a plebe. And they give you 2 plebes of your own. Oh. And they say, you're in charge of this person. You're responsible for everything they do and fail to do. You're responsible for training them. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, because I never, throughout all of my growing up, I wasn't the team captain. I wasn't I wasn't the leader. And all of a sudden, through no fault or skill of my own, other than showing back up for the second year, they said, you're a leader, go do it.
Wow.
And that was, obviously, I mean, that was so many years ago now. That was truly remarkable because failure wasn't an option. I couldn't say, oh, wait, hold on. I'm of the mindset that leaders are born, not made, and that's not me. You got the wrong guy here. I couldn't say that. And so that was, that really changed my life into saying, all right, this is real now. It's like, I've heard from a lot of people that first time you hold your first kid, your first baby, it's like all of a sudden you're responsible for this human.
Yep.
Whoa. Someone forgot to give me the instruction
I know.
manual.
Just about to say, how do you do this?
Yeah. I mean, shouldn't there be some kind of doctoral program on this? I'm not sure, but I didn't get any of it. And so, it was a total mind shift, but this was back in the 90s. This is before the global war. I mean, there was, Iraq in 91. And before that, there were some of those, Caribbean excursions, but there wasn't a whole lot going on. And so, got into the Army, was doing my thing, trained as a helicopter pilot, was flying. And I was actually in the air on 9/11.
Wow.
I was flying with my platoon on 9/11. And we were at Fort Carson, and for any military buffs out there, that's right next door to NORAD. And so 9/11 hit. They grounded all of our aircraft. One of the guys in my platoon actually was involved in the invasion in 91. And so, and the unit that I was in was the number one lead unit into that invasion. Wow. In 1991, 3rd Cav. And so we landed, all the aircraft were grounded, and he stepped right out of the aircraft, the blades were still turning, and said, and I'll still remember it, "We're going to war, boys, we're going to war."
Jeez.
And that was day one. They were trying to figure out where the live bullets were for our helicopter and all the missiles so they could arm them up, because no one knew if the next attack was coming.
Yeah.
It was a crazy, uncertain time. And, that was sort of that next step. And that next step was, okay, it's one thing to go out and train and, go do the Army thing and, yeah, okay, whatever. And then all of a sudden in one morning, my platoon, we had about 27, 30 folks in it at that time. And, 30 folks and 4 aircraft.
Yep.
And they were mine.
Wow.
And, that was, arm up right now to try to defend, Fort Carson and prepare because we're going to war. And so, that was that next step. And it went from, okay, I have people that I'm responsible for, but it's peacetime, but to I have people that I'm responsible for, and there's going to be other people shooting at us.
Yep.
That changes things a lot.
Yep.
That forced me to get so much more proactive. And rather than just do what you're asked, figure out,
stay ahead of the bad guys and figure out how in the world we can keep, I can keep my guys as safe as possible. Yeah. Yeah. That's like that. I mean, what a huge shift. So two huge paradigm shifts. One, that first being where it's like comfortable being a follower. Yeah. Whatever you guys need, I'll be your little pogue. That's fine. Yeah. And then boom, you have two people. Oh crap. And you and I both know Army wise, like, it's no joke. If they mess up, it's your fault, not their fault. It's you Absolutely. Failed at being a leader. It's your fault. And then to go from that, and then being responsible for millions of dollars worth of equipment, being responsible for, because it's not, 27 people around there, because it's their families as well. So if they're a family of 2 or 3 kids, you can times that by 3, 4, 5 times of how many people you're actually responsible for. So hundreds of people. And and literally in a life or death situation. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it is. It's, even looking back at it now, so many years in the rearview mirror, it's a daunting thing to even think about. But it's really, it's one of those things that, for me, a lot of it goes back to leaders are made. Mm-hmm. When you're set in a position and you say, okay, that's it, I've got to do it.
Yep.
And, bringing it around to what we're seeing right now, we've all been set in that position. Mm-hmm. We've all been told right now, you've got to go do it.
Yep.
And, are the consequences real? Absolutely.
Yep.
People aren't shooting at you, no doubt. However, you've still got employees that are counting on you. Mm-hmm. You have a family that's counting on you. You have an extended family. Mm-hmm. You have, when you start getting into the health of the people around you, the greater health of your city or your sphere of friends, people you might come in contact, you do have a very large sphere. Mm-hmm. And you can't just say, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
You've got to do it. That is your calling, your spot right now. Is you don't have an option to say no, and you have to start. And the growth from that I'm already seeing in people is just incredible. It's you never want that crisis, but the growth that comes out of it is so great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I love that. So you went from being a platoon leader to obviously going up the ranks. How did you get into the more business leadership side of things?
So I took a really strange path. Once again, even in the Army, I saw a good opportunity. I took it. It was a great role, and it was the absolute. Everyone said it's the kiss of death for a pilot. I went to maintenance.
I remember us talking about this. This is so cool.
Yeah, and so I went over to do helicopter maintenance. And
but before you get into that, real quick,
yeah.
What kind of helicopters did you fly?
Oh, sorry. I flew, and this is going to date me a little bit. It's not even in the inventory anymore. It's called a OH-58D Kiowa Warrior. It is armed reconnaissance.
I loved those. They were amazing. We were in Bragg, and we were doing pre-deployment there and qualifying on our weapons, our assigned weapons, and just seeing them fly by, boom, all the time. I'm like, these things, they are so fast and so like maneuverable. I love those ones.
Yeah, they absolutely, hands down, the best mission in the Army. We could go into all the different reasons that I wanted to be a Cav guy from the very beginning, but great mission, great helicopter, lots and lots of fun. And everyone that was on the ground around us always wanted to see us.
Yeah.
So no, that's true. That is very true.
I love it. Oh, so you went from flying to maintenance, and you're probably thinking, what did I do? Why did I do this?
Well, there was a lot of real reasons for it. The big one, and any military folks out there, and Dean, you'll know this for sure, is it got me a second platoon.
Oh, nice.
And so it kept me out of staff. And so I went from a platoon, like I said, 27, 30 folks, and in maintenance as I guess I was a very junior, very young captain by this time. I had 3 platoons and about 115 people.
Yeah, see, that's great.
And so, to stay off of staff and get a second platoon is just, I couldn't pass that up.
Yeah. And for those non-military guys, so he basically double or tripled his responsibility. It got to be a leader and not be someone's biatch.
Yeah. Not the third assistant coffee maker on staff.
Yeah, pretty
exactly.
much.
Yeah, so I did that, and that was another one of those real just shifts, because that was the unit I deployed with for the invasion of Iraq, and so I didn't have cav guys with me. I didn't have pilots. I didn't have all of this stuff. I had avionics repair guys, weapon system repair guys, sheet metal, hydraulics. I had maintenance guys, supply guys, and stuff like that. And I took 107 of them over to the desert.
Wow.
Over there, and we ended up being, at the time of the invasion, we were the furthest west unit that had ever been American unit in Iraq.
Wow.
So we were all of Anbar province.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had Fallujah, Ramadi, all the way to the Syrian border.
Wow.
All the great vacation spots.
Those are the toughest spots, man.
Yeah, it was a crazy time, and I found myself I found myself in the spot where I was having to grab my all of my soldiers, my avionics guys, and train them up on convoys, and I was running convoys.
Wow.
Because that was the need. And so, here I am, a pilot, with a bunch of supply folks and support folks, and we're having to run convoys from out towards Syria all the way down to Baghdad, which meant going by Fallujah, by Ramadi, into Baghdad itself. With guys that really weren't trained. And once again, these are my guys.
Yeah. And at that time, were the Humvees armored up?
Oh no.
That's what I figured. Like, cause it was, that's the beginning. That's when people were like, the soldiers were like, IEDs? What are IEDs?
Yeah, no, there was, and it was, all the stuff you hear about. We didn't have any armor. We took all the canvas doors off, because canvas doesn't do any good.
Yeah.
And, there was roadside bombs. There was ambushes. They would drop grenades off the top of
Deep
overpasses.
Bridges, yeah.
There was it was really changing really quickly, and it was one of those, the same thing where you have to stay ahead of the bad guy. You have to be that much more proactive. You have to really take in all the information you can get and try to figure out where the enemy is going next, and try to get there before they do. And it's, once again, it's real, because that's your guys out there.
Yeah.
And not only is it your guys, but it's you.
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
And that was, could I have, stayed back on the base and said, hey, someone else, go run the convoys? Sure. And I got a whole bunch of grief as an officer running convoys, because, you'll remember in your Army time, that's NCO stuff.
Yeah.
No, I was going to run my guys.
Yep.
And so, that's where I really got kind of my first foray into the importance of really staying ahead, really looking out as far as I could go, and figuring out the strategy to stay ahead. And with that big of an organization, we had lots of civilian contractors over there with us also. Yeah. And so if I were to say, back to the question that got us here, where did the whole going over to the more corporate thing? It started there, because I was interacting with a lot of these people, and it was much more of a corporate feeling organization, because it wasn't tip of the spear, combat arms kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There was the bureaucracy, there was the meetings, there was all of that kind of stuff. And it was maintenance.
Yeah.
In addition to all, the kind of fun, cool stuff that they write books and stuff about, it was just the daily grind of, hey, keep an aircraft in the air.
Yeah, PMCSing, all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that really started me down that path. And that really, I did the rest of my time in the Army. I deployed once more, same thing, to a whole bunch of fun garden spots in central Iraq. And, then after that, had enough, had some young kids, too many deployments, all that kind of stuff, got out and went corporate. Went over and worked for Cargill, at the time, the largest privately held corporation in the world, maintenance and engineering. And, people, I have family members ask, how in the world did you transition from being a helicopter pilot to maintenance at a malt plant? How did you wrap your head around that change? It really wasn't much of a change.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at, and I tell people this all the time, there's what you do is one very, very small part of your whole who you are.
Yeah.
It's how you affect that world around you. Mm-hmm. And so, when it's broken down that way, I had a group of people that were mine.
Yeah.
We were supporting a group of people doing a job. Those people had the final say on if I was doing a good job or not. I had to stay ahead of what they wanted and train my guys so that they'd be ready to meet the needs of the customer before the customer even wanted it, or even knew they wanted it. And I had to learn new ways to do it. We were repairing industrial equipment, but that's, you can people laugh when I say this, but you can train a monkey to fix a helicopter.
Yeah.
You can train a monkey to fix anything.
Yep.
It's the people aspect of what that looks like that makes you successful or not. And so really that transition wasn't that hard because what it comes right down to is leading people.
Mm-hmm. That's powerful, man, because, you could have that mindset of, well, I can only fly, or, well, I can only lead people in the military, or I can only work on helicopters. But to be able to take what you've learned in all of these different aspects and go to this whole new industry, this whole new thing, and see the similarities in it, and be able to implement those tools, all the things that you've learned to either do the job or to improve the job, or to communicate and work with the people around you. That's a huge thing. What we're, because this is going to lead into what you do now, which I think is so important, because a lot of, especially in good times, like we said before, people get tunnel vision, especially business owners, they get tunnel vision. This has always worked. And so you got to keep on doing it this way. And these other ways of doing things are just kind of like a nice to have or an expense or whatever. Like how is it that you were able to take the maintenance, all that other stuff, and be able to see that, it doesn't really matter where you're at. All this stuff can be applied it basically anywhere that you go.
I wish I could say that it was some big grand plan. And especially for me talking about how, at this time I'm learning how to see much more strategic. It goes back to those, that unanswered prayers.
Yeah.
I just figured that I was going to do maintenance and engineering. My degree's in engineering, my training is in maintenance. Hey, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to work my way up the rungs and all that kind of stuff. And I had and I'll sanitize a little bit of it to protect the innocent, or not so much, but I got put in a situation where I was in my maintenance and engineering jobs, where I was asked by the corporation to do one thing and my immediate boss to do another thing.
Oh, that's
and
rough.
So and it turned into a really bad situation. And so once again, I was forced out of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. I love maintenance. I love engineering. I love building stuff. You and I have talked, I teach wood shop to kids for, in homes to homeschool kids. Mm-hmm. I like, teaching people how to work on cars. I just love the mechanical and the building stuff. Yeah. But I also wanted to, sort of stretch my legs a little bit. And so I was looking towards that general manager job. I want to broaden my scope out past just this maintenance and engineering thing. And when I was put in that situation with the, kind of with the which master are you going to serve sort of thing, that didn't end well. And so I ended up walking from there right into a GM job.
Wow.
So I had a whole facility, a whole manufacturing plant myself, not in food processing at all. I was doing packaging material this time.
So cool.
And it was actually really funny because I ended up, I said my 107 folks that I went to the desert with the first time. I built that plant from about 75 people out to right about 115.
Wow.
So I surpassed my number a little bit. And being involved then in all the business side, because in maintenance and engineering, whether it's the military or corporate world, you're sort of, keep those guys under wraps, don't let them out of their dark recesses and their corners too much.
Yeah.
And so now I got to see all the rest of it. I got to see the business. I got to see the strategy. I got to see the money. I got to see all of those things, the HR, the safety, the regulatory,
Totally. I was just about to say that's a lot. I mean, that's added, like when you're in that one little corner, you kind of get a little myopic there, seeing like, oh yeah, this is rough, this is tough, and hard leadership, and you have your own little concerns. But then when you get to the general manager, you're dealing with payroll, you're dealing with hiring, firing, you're dealing with, like you said, the regulatory. Depending on what state you're in, you can be personally liable for whatever you do. Like all this stuff, you have 15 times more things to worry about.
You have 15 times more things to worry about. And the thing is, you don't even know all the things you have to worry about. I mean, there's no possible way to know all of the things that will get you in trouble, fined, or thrown in jail.
Yep.
It's just, there's no way. And so that was one of those things where I realized that there's a lot of parts of business, HR, regulatory, some of that kind of stuff that is still not my favorite. But what I also realized in that transition is that all of those different functions still come back to leadership.
Yeah, for sure.
They still come back to doing the right thing, no matter what. They still come back to relating to people, developing people, looking at who your customer is and figuring out how you're going to meet their needs. And so even though those maybe aren't my, first choice, my top of the list type things, I still found out that there was so many similarities, even going out of technical fields, that it really sort of started solidifying for me this idea of how important leadership is in the world right now. And it was also a little bit worrying because so few people were talking about it.
Yeah.
A lot of people talked about, this is my job. This is what I do. I run payroll. I make sure personnel files are in order, stuff like that. Like, no, that's sure, you can, once again, you can teach a monkey how to fix a helicopter.
Totally.
But you need those leadership skills. And I saw that I was getting some good results from a lot of the folks that had been sort of passed over or written off within that organization that was just started flowering. And all of a sudden that made me sort of, that light bulb went off with, okay, this is something that I'm not going to get in kind of your traditional big business manufacturing company role.
Yep.
And once again, that was that huge mindset shift for me.
Go
ahead.
No, it's it's cool because that's one of the. It's funny that you even met because a lot of people don't see that aspect of there are people in my industry of what I do, the whole idea of the trained monkey being able to do stuff, I know that sounds like derogatory, but it's true. Like there's so many jobs that you can, if you had a standard operating procedure that's extremely detailed, you could literally take someone off the street and have them do it.
Yep.
And it's interesting how owners of businesses, leaders in businesses tend to not see that there are people that they have. And this is what kind of shocked me when you said it, because it's very, it plagues. I've seen it happen so many times. There are people who are waiting, who are there, who have the talent to be high value assets to the business, but they're kind of suppressed. And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about like that aspect because you're literally, it's like a force multiplier that you're waiting there.
Absolutely. And I'll even I'll use the name on this. I mean, there's those certain names that you remember throughout your whole career. Bobby's one of them. And so Bobby was from the prior plant manager. I was passed on Bobby's name as he's someone that is on his last leg. He has no more chances and he'll be gone soon. I mean, day one, there's, one or two people that I've been told about when I'm taking this job. Bobby's one of them. It's like, oh boy, okay, here's my problem. But as I was looking at him, Bobby, really young, super nice kid, he wasn't living up to his potential. When you talk to him versus what you were seeing him do, it's like he was kind of floating, unsure. And so it took me a little bit to go through and see all of this, but I gave Bobby a job. And, once going back to West Point, this is your thing. You're responsible for it. You own it. One of those things that I think that is getting in so many people's way nowadays is they're given responsibility without given ownership.
Yeah.
And that ownership aspect, with ownership comes responsibility, no doubt. But you can't give someone responsibility without giving them ownership. Yeah. And that is a big plague in business right now, is you're responsible to make this happen. And you have to do this, and this to get there. Yep. Well, then I don't own it. If you want me to do this, and this to get there, then do it yourself. Don't have me be the fall guy. Yeah. And so I gave Bobby ownership.
Yeah.
And it was a really small thing, but it was something that it seemed like he enjoyed. And there you go, Bobby, it's yours. So, 2 days later, Bobby comes in. Hey, I'm thinking of doing this. Is that something I should do? Or is that okay? I said, I don't know, Bobby. What do you think? He says, yeah, that's what I would do. Okay, go do it. A week later, Bobby comes in. I'm thinking about this versus this. Which should I do? I said, which one do you want to do? He said, this one. Okay, go do it. This went on for like months. Yeah. I mean, months, maybe 2 months of Bobby coming in every week or two saying, this is an option, this is an option. And I just, every time he walked in,
what do you think?
I said, what do you want to do? Okay, go do it. Right, I could have just pressed play right there. And finally, and this is one of those, I can still picture the day in my office when Bobby walks in, says, I'm thinking about this versus this. What do you think I should do? And I said, I don't know, Bobby, what do you want to do? He said, well, I think this. I said, okay, go do it. He turned around to walk out, and he turned back and he looked at me and he said, you're going to say that every time I walk in here, aren't you? I said, yes, I am. Said, you don't want me to come in here and ask you anymore, do you? I said, nope, I want you to do it. You own it.
Yeah.
Said, okay, I'll do it.
Ugh.
That was it. Bobby was a rock star after that.
I love it. I love it.
And that, I mean, this is not, I mean, I'm not Patton leading people across North Africa doing this. I'm just saying, what do you want to do? It's your project. Go do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't take a ton of skill. That doesn't take a whole lot of,
Yeah.
that's not really a big thing, but that amount of ownership is huge.
Yeah.
And it took Bobby from having problems to being an absolutely stellar employee.
See, and that's where it's funny because I don't know how to put it, but like that, the people who are under you generally want to see the success of the business. They wouldn't be there if they weren't. Like nobody, I mean, not nobody, but there are some people who just want a paycheck and they want to go home and that's it. But if you can identify those people who are like, who actually enjoy what they're doing, they enjoy what the business does, you will get those people. I mean, Bobby wants things to be successful. He wouldn't come and ask you if he didn't want it to actually be a success.
Yeah.
It's there's one of my favorite books called Rework. It's actually the guys who wrote it, but they talk about being a manager of one. Like everybody's a manager. Everyone is a manager and have ownership of what they are doing. And like that right there is living proof that if you let people, obviously as a leader you have to assess, but by default, if you feel that people want your business to be successful, they are going to they're not going to go do stupid stuff. Like they are going to try to do the right thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, and Bobby still had the great the great opportunity because he was still young. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of folks have 30, 40 years of professional history of being given responsibility with no authority.
Yeah. And
they are so disgruntled because of it that it can take a long, long, long time
mm-hmm.
to overcome that. And that's really why leadership is so important and so much needed right now. Is the thing about that that's funny is that made my job easier, and that's one of those things that it's you don't realize it until you see it.
Yeah.
But I could look at it and say, hey, from a selfish side, I really didn't want to do that thing that I gave to Bobby.
Yeah.
And you know what? If I'm going to give it to someone and then I'm going to micromanage them, I'm not helping myself out at all.
Mm-mm.
And this really transitioned well. My next path down the road was a consultant to small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And, and it's a little bit, everyone that talks to me knows I've got a military background. I just, that's something after so many years I can't hide. So I think it actually allows me to be a little bit more stark and brutal sometimes.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that we always would say in the Army, and I know you remember this, is, for me as the lieutenant, okay, Lieutenant, you're dead. What happens now?
Yeah.
Right. In every training situation, the first thing that goes, the lieutenant gets killed.
Yep.
And so that was always me. I got to be the lieutenant that went first step out the gate. Lieutenant gets killed, and I have to sit there and watch how my guys do without me.
Yep.
And so, what I would tell these business owners is, when was the last time you took a vacation? I mean, a totally unplugged vacation.
Yeah.
I haven't taken a vacation in 25 years. Okay. What happens if you walk out the door today, get hit by a bus, and you can't talk on the phone for 30 days in ICU? I'm not saying that I want that to happen to you. That would be bad. However, what would happen? What would happen to your business? I said, well, they'd probably manage along fine without me. Okay, then you need to take a vacation.
Yep.
And, do that now. Don't wait till you get hit by a bus.
Yep.
And then the next one is when the business owner would say, I don't think that this business would last 5 days without me. Okay, what's the first thing that would fail?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the first thing you have to do.
Fix. Yep.
There's a book, Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way.
Yeah. It's a great book.
That's it. I mean, what's the first obstacle? If the first thing that happens if you, the owner, is in the ICU for a month, is that payroll is not going to be submitted. Okay, you need to train a backup payroll person, and you need to let them do it.
Yep.
Take that off your plate. Disposition that over to someone else.
Yep.
Train it, disposition it, and then say, all right, what's the next thing that's going to break?
Yep.
Work on that. And that doesn't take a ton of time, but so many people don't think of it that way.
Yep.
If there's a single point of failure, you're going to fail. Yep. Everyone in there is going to fail, and that doesn't help anyone.
Yep. See, and that's what people are facing now. They don't have a choice.
Yeah, no, it's so true. When you look at people that are trying to work from home for the first time.
Yep.
And, this is one of the things that I love about what's going on, absolutely love, is we've actually turned back the clock, and bosses can't micromanage their people.
I love it. I know. That's what I was.
They have to give them a task and trust them.
Yep.
You should have been doing that for years.
Yep.
That's a hallmark of leadership. Is, you should be able to tell every employee of yours, go work from home. You know what your responsibilities are. Get them done.
Yep.
That's when your organization is set up for success.
Yep. That is so cool, because that's one of the things that I noticed is every business now has to not micromanage, has to rely on their people, on what they've instilled in their people. And it has to decentralize as well, away from the business owner. Decentralize from a location, decentralize from a business owner, and so it's cool because it's like you said, this is the way it should have. It should have been in the first place. And now it's only now that people are seeing like, oh crap, I should have done this a long time ago. Like, what do you think is like? So, what do you think is for a business owner, somebody who's CEO or business owner, what do you think is like one of the major things that like plague literally every business, that if they fixed, and this isn't the 5-minute question, this is a different one, but if they fixed, they would see a massive thing, which they probably have to do now?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things that business owners get stuck in, and this this isn't the capital letters founders paradox, but this is the small business owners paradox. Maybe maybe I'll coin that word right now. Is that they built it from nothing. They built it from scratch, and they know how it worked while they were building it. But and I think this is, I want to make sure I attribute it. I think this is a Tim Ferriss. What got you here won't get you there.
True. Yeah.
And so the business owner, this driven, focused, determined, gritty, do what it takes to build a business owner.
Yeah.
All of those things then have to transition to a stepped back humility.
Yeah.
Which is totally antithetical to someone that's been kicking and clawing for 25 years to make something.
Yep.
They then have to have that humility to step back and not only say, you do this, because that's what gets most of them in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You do this because this is the way that I did it.
Mm-hmm.
But to step back and say, you own this, make it better.
Yeah.
And that amount of releasing control for a person that has had to control everything just to be successful is probably the reason that the statistics are so bad for small businesses succeeding past the first generation.
Yeah.
And I think that's the number one thing I've seen with, working, 60, 70, 80 small businesses. That's probably number one.
That's a great point. That's a great point, because there are, the pride of saying, well, I spent 12 hours a day, every day, sometimes even longer building this thing. I'm just going to hand that part off to this person. No, it's going to all come crashing down or whatever, and that's not usually, if you pick the right people, that's not the case. That's not going to happen. I mean, so one of my guys who he's such a huge part of my business. He's my general manager. He brought about this. He came to me with this incentive program that he wanted to do for all of our guys. And, my initial thing was like, why do we need it? Like, in my habit is, why do we need an incentive program? Like, everything's going fine. I don't I give you guys bonuses. I do this and that. But I said, okay, let's do it. That's fine. Let's just go ahead and do it. It's your baby. You figure it out and do it. And after the first month, after I saw how much I had to pay for this incentive program, I'm like, I'm not quite sure if this is gonna work, and yada yada. And so he talked to me again, and I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to commit to a year. If it improves the business, I'll commit to a year. You run it, enjoy it. I'm not going to bring it up anymore. I commit to a year. It's a lot of money on my end, but whatever. Well, like my initial reaction is like, I built this the way I built it, and it should work just fine. Well, he not only got us more customers because of reaching out to our customers all the time. He saved a couple customers from leaving because of that thing, and it far outweighed the stuff. And he saw that, like, oh, and then on top of that, the incentive program, the productivity of all of my staff just went through the roof. And I'm like, okay, I need to exactly what you said. The way that I built this and I did it is not necessarily the best way. My guys are actively trying to build my business for me. Every single one of them. Let them do it.
Yeah, no, and I think what you said is so important. The one thing that I will pick a small nit with on you here is if you hire good people.
Yeah. Correct.
I actually think, and not everyone is good. Mm-hmm. I have met some of them without a doubt. But I think that even people that maybe aren't ideal, they still have a lot of value that they can bring. Mm-hmm. And I think that, what you described there is 100% right about the incentive program. Mm-hmm. And the reason is that you have to figure out where your biggest value is. Mm-hmm. That's you as the owner. And everyone, even that's not the owner, has to figure out where their biggest value is.
Yeah.
And if you're working on something that isn't the biggest value, even if maybe you're doing it more efficiently, you're doing it less expensively, you're doing it, whatever your metric is, you're doing it better as you than this employee that maybe is a good employee, but not a superstar.
Yeah.
You're still taking your time to work at that level.
Yeah.
That is a mindset. That's a total mindset shift. Even if the guy isn't doing it the most efficiently, even if you had spent 3 months coming up with an incentive program that was a little tweaked better here, and maybe it cost you a little bit less money, what's the opportunity cost of you, Dean, doing that versus your guy?
Mm-hmm.
And there's another layer on top of that. You doing it, you weren't working out that muscle.
Correct.
Now your manager is working out that muscle. He's taking more ownership and more responsibility. Even if that thing he does ends up costing money, the fact that he has taken ownership to start it means that he's developing down the path, which means he's going to take more ownership in the future, which means he's going to take more off your plate in the future, which means he's going to free you up to do more of your stuff, which is higher value to the organization.
Mm.
You can't pay for that kind of experience, and they've just got to do it to do it.
That's interesting, man. It's funny. It's funny that you bring the first thing that came to mind, and I will take that challenge on the nitpick of hiring the right people. That it doesn't necessarily, like, the person might not be ideal, because I remember back when I was in Airfjan, there was this. Her first name was Anne. We'll just say that her first name was Anne. And she was she was a specialist, and nobody liked her. They just thought she was useless. She was kind of like one of those hippie chicks who wasn't. She just came in for the money, and at least is what people thought. And so she was under me, and I was forced to give her responsibility because I had other things that I was doing, and. So I essentially gave her a couple of a PFC and a couple of other specialists, and I'm like, you're in charge of them. So we would do briefings. We're Intel, so we do briefings every week, and she would do. I gave her essentially the whole briefing stuff. We brief a brigadier every weekend. And it was like, if this works, great. If this doesn't, I'm going to get flamed. And she was awesome. Like, it was the first time in like years that she had been given any type of real ownership of anything. And so, like, I even was like, she's not ideal. She ended up being one of my best soldiers. And so... she got promoted to NCO, E5, and all this other stuff. When people were like, "What are you really her?" And I'm like, "She's been killing it for me. So shut up."
Yeah.
And so you're right. You're right on that. It's interesting. It totally brought that back to memory. So then, what for a business owner right now? Like, what is something that if they just, whether it's a mindset they can do in 5 minutes, mindset shift, or something that, like, within 5 minutes, something super, super simple that they could do right now that would affect and transform all of their business, what would it be?
I'm going to have to do a little description afterwards.
Yeah, no worries.
But the word's leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So many people, I love small business owners. Small business owners are awesome. I remember one of my clients, said, "Well, tell me the story. How did you start your business?" Said, I graduated with a degree in engineering, but realized that I could not work for anyone else. So I decided I'd better start a business. Like, wow. Okay. That's your business plan, is that you don't get along with people and you can't work for them. So you have to start your own business.
It's so funny.
Okay. Business owners are great people, but so many of them don't see themselves as leaders.
Yeah.
They see themselves as, I can do something that makes money.
Yeah.
But that's not a leader in their mind.
Mm.
And my word to, everyone out there with a small business is, you are a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You possess leadership traits. They typically possess much stronger leadership traits than they have any idea of.
Yeah.
But they have to wrap their head around it.
Mm-hmm.
They have to embrace, like that, way back when at the academy, You are a leader now.
Yep.
You have to change the way you think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And what that leadership means isn't doing the job. It's helping the people get better at doing the job.
Mm-hmm.
And that mindset shift, I think, is what takes everyone to that next level. And that's the thing that the leaders need right now in these small businesses. That's what the small business owner needs to wrap their head around, is that it's not you doing it better. It's you being a leader so that your people figure out how to do it better.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it Richard Branson? It's something like hire smart people and then get out of the way. I mean, that's probably a gross paraphrase, and I may have even butchered the reference. But but still, you've got people. I mean, small business owners. When I look at these folks, and so many of them, they've got an office manager that's been doing that job, that's been running the office for 20 years.
Yeah.
And they still aren't allowed to do anything unless they're told to by the owner.
Yep.
That's not being a leader.
Yep.
And you can't do that in times like this.
Yep.
You've got to really pull back from the doing and start looking at the leader. You're going to be uncomfortable with it. You're going to think that you're not prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to think that's not your innate skill. All of those things are going to go through your mind. Guess what? They're wrong, and you have to do it anyway.
I love that.
And that's it. That is their role.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, if there's, 5 business owners out there that get that message, hey, we're 1,000 times better than where we are when we started.
Yeah.
Then I'll put one caveat on the end of it. You can be a leader. Every business owner out there can be a leader. Does that mean that you are going to have the answers all the time?
Mm.
Does that mean that you're going to be totally certain of what to do next all the time? Does that mean that every one of your decisions is going to be the right one? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. People aren't, the folks in your organization aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for an anchor.
Yep.
And that anchor, I love the analogy of, for anyone out there, sailors know what a sea anchor is. That basically all it is it's a net that you throw out into the ocean, and it keeps the ship pointed in the right direction in the storm.
Mm.
And so all it does is when the ship is being blown by the wind, it slows the one end of it down.
Oh.
By creating drag in the water.
Yeah.
And so it keeps you oriented in the storm.
Wow.
As the waves are breaking, and of course, what direction do the waves go in a storm? They go with the wind.
Mm.
And so when the wind is pushing the boat and the sea anchor is holding the stern or the bow into the wind, it means that you're perfectly oriented into the waves.
Wow.
And I love that analogy because what's that leader doing? The leader's
anchoring.
just keeping everyone oriented just into the way that's best able to negotiate that storm. You're not making big decisions.
Yep.
You're letting everyone else on that boat do their job because they're not getting tossed around by the waves that are hitting the boat sideways.
Oh, I love this, dude. Like it's so my guys, my core team of 5, when this whole thing came about with the COVID-19 and quarantine and stuff, they started freaking out.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, guys, relax. Like, for me, obviously, as a leader, you're going to freak out over things too. But I'm like, dude, we built our business to withstand this. This is why we built and we do what we do this way. And like literally it was just me being an anchor. Like you said, like that's like, it was just, guys, we're good. Things are going to be a little bit interesting the next few weeks, maybe months. We don't know. It's going to be interesting, but we're good. Don't worry about it. We are going to withstand this storm or whatever. From that point on, they were like, oh, okay. And then just went back to doing what they were doing. And that, nothing special. I have done nothing different from like, oh, we're going to go do this and we're going to change this. And we're going to do that. And we're going to, I need you to stop doing this and do it the way I want you to do it. It was just literally like, relax.
Well, and what's amazing is when you back off like that and you allow that freedom, and you're that anchor that says, okay, everyone, calm down. You're not freaking out. You're showing everyone that it's okay to be calm. And that gives you that mental bandwidth to then start going and talking to the folks doing the job. Mm-hmm. And it's this thing that's so simple when you talk about it, but it's so hard to do, because then you go and you call up your ops manager and say, hey, what are you seeing from on the ground floor? Mm-hmm. Then you call up, sales and marketing. Hey, what are the trends doing here? What are you seeing?
Yep.
And in doing that, you're even more solidifying that sea anchor.
Yep.
But you're also, those guys have a much better view on the ground of what's happening next.
Exactly.
You're able, because you've let go, to then gather and synthesize this intel and then make better decisions.
Yep.
And it seems so counterintuitive to be able to lead the company in a more effective direction.
Yep.
By letting go. But that's how it works.
Totally.
And it's totally counterintuitive, but man, when you see it work, it just immediately jumps out at you, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what it needs to be. This is where it's at.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. So how can people reach you? How can people work with you? How can people benefit from all this, man?
Yeah, absolutely. So like we mentioned at the beginning, Diligent Plans, if you go to diligentplans.com/free coaching, that will link you up to the whole team. And it's exactly what it says. It is free coaching. It's a bunch of other Army background leaders, multiple combat tours, Pentagon speakers, leadership trainers, an amazing group of folks with an incredible background. And every one of us is just looking to give time out there for anyone that wants to learn about how to better lead in this crisis. Free session. You've got nothing to lose. So once again, diligentplans.com/free coaching. That's one of my projects right now. And other than that, the best way to find me, if you want some other kind of business coaching strategy, any of that kind of stuff during these uncertain times, best way to get me is on LinkedIn. Eric Olsen, Leadership Evangelist.
I love it.
That's what the tagline is. So reach out. I love helping people solve problems, whatever that looks like. I don't do cookie cutter. I don't do programs. I don't do that kind of stuff. I try to figure out what's really going on with you and reach out and really try to meet you where you are and move forward and take that next step from there.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, guys, go check out what Eric has. He is amazing. He is literally, I wouldn't say a problem solver. He is like the problem solver. like huge problems that are plaguing your business, things like that. He's able to very quickly decipher what's going on and make huge shifts. So go check him out for sure. And it's Olsen, Olsen.
Correct. Yeah, I should have said that. It is Eric, ERIC, Olsen, OLSEN. Yeah, for such a very common name, very frequently misspelled. Thank you, Dean.
No problem. So thanks, man, for being on. It's so cool. I can't wait to roll with you after all this is all done. And I missed the jiu-jitsu.
Get off quarantine and go get some exercise. Can't wait for it, for sure.
But yeah, it's so nice talking to you, man. And excited for all the help that you're going to be giving people. I know you and I are planning some different things as well. Awesome guys. Awesome guy. And if you really want to transform your business, you have to have to work with Eric. He is awesome, especially during this time. It's, working with him right now is vital if you want to not only withstand this storm, but move into be able to withstand pretty much any storm as time goes by, because that's what leadership is the ability to be that anchor, that sea anchor during the storms like this. So thanks so much for being on, man. I appreciate you so much.
Absolutely, Dean. Thanks for the invite, and love everything you're doing also, and keep spreading the word, keep doing good things, getting it out there with the podcast, and all of just all of the different ways of helping people. I just love it. That is just music to my ears when people are talking about leadership, talking about helping people, talking about looking ahead, weathering the storm. This kind of stuff is just, it's a blast, and I love to see it in every single way that I do. And you're definitely, you're one of those places that I'm seeing it. And so keep up the good work. Thanks, man.
All right, guys, go check out Eric, diligentplans.com/free coaching. And then also catch him on LinkedIn, Eric Olsen, leadership evangelist. And this is the end of the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast episode. I'll go check out freedomin5minutes.com and prosolume.com. And I will catch you on the next Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast episode.
Thanks for listening to the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. Now, head over to www.freedomin5minutes.com and register for our free masterclass and discover how to start systemizing and automating your entire business 5 minutes at a time. We'll see you next time on the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast.